live? Is it Memorex? Who knows? I guess we will see. Oh shit, there are already people in chat. Hello chat, how are you? So I just sent out a tweet. I'm gonna retweet it, and then we'll start the lovely discussion of DC by Night and Vampire the Masquerade. Oh shit, join us. Well, I mean, chat, you've already joined us, so A+ for you, all the brownie points, and vampire points. Yeah, I'm right. Hi, Herm. Hi, David. So, I am live. Or are we undead? Woo! Vampire! Oh shit, wrong one. I love how I was like DC's Twitter. We are professionals here at Dungeon Crawl. So, woo! Hello and welcome to Dungeon Crawl, where a bunch of us nerds play nerdy stuff like TTRPGs as well as video games. I am Snicket. Hi, Chris. I'm Snicket at Persnicketies on Twitter, and with me I have a very special guest who, please introduce yourself, special guest.
Hi, I am Kyle, sitting in for this discussion today.
Woo! I have Kyle with me. This is, gonna be interesting. Kyle is very passionate about Vampire the Masquerade and is extremely knowledgeable about the mechanics section of it, and wants to show how much he's passionate about this, because he's definitely not trying to get me to run Vampire the Masquerade for you guys.
Join me. Join me.
So, without further ado, I think we're going to start off by talking a little bit about sort of the world of darkness, mostly relating to Vampire the Masquerade, because I could spend a while talking about the world of darkness as a whole, because, oh shit, that stuff's interesting. And then transition into the mechanics, and then talking about DC by Night, which is Dungeon Crawl by Night, but is also the setting for said multi-shots. So, yeah, everyone says hi, Kyle.
I know.
So, for those interested, we are running, this is not the actual version we're going to be running, this is the old 95 cover, I think, of Vampire the Masquerade. We're going to be running the 20th anniversary edition of Vampire the Masquerade for the multi-shots that I will be running. So, essentially, what is Vampire the Masquerade? Are the vampires different from vampires of pop culture? Yes and no. So, Vampire the Masquerade, it sort of runs down like this. It is a gothic punk setting. Very much influenced by the late 80s, early 90s kind of grunge punk, but an overall gothic feel to it. No, they don't sparkle herm, thank Christ. I'd have to, no, we burn it with fire. So essentially talking about sort of the genesis of vampires as a whole, and starting from there. So, depending on who you ask, there is Cain, supposedly Cain and Abel, and after he killed Abel, God said, "What the fuck, dude? That was fucked up. Here, I'm cursing you." And Cain was like, "Oh no, I'm cursed. I'm gonna go.
I'm cursed to live to be immortal. What a terrible curse."
So he went off to the land of Nod and learned his vampiric powers and set up the first city. Though there are other traditions which say that when Cain was sort of cast off after being cursed by God, he ran into Lilith, who said, "Aha, Cain, you wanna learn some vampire powers?" And Cain said, "Sure, girl, let's do this shit." And so different traditions state exactly what happens, but legend says that Cain was the first vampire. He is the first generation. Afterwards, he made the first city where he sired the second generation, who there were only, I believe, three.
Mm-hmm. Three.
Enoch, Isrod, and Zillah, who were his children. And lovers, and they begat the third generation. The second generation begat the third generation, which there were 13. They became known as the Antediluvians. Why? Well, because, you see, shit hit the fan. The supposedly
The biblical flood happens.
The biblical flood happens. Cain left, said, peace out, y'all, I'm out. And then the flood happens, and after that, they're sort of left to their own devices, which, if you are a father, or if you are a parent, you know that you do not leave your children alone. Because then things happen. Like, say, the third generation rebels and slays the second generation.
Killed their...
Yeah, which... See,
the ultimate fuck you, Dad.
Yes, that's the ultimate fuck you, Dad. And the second city that had been built just fell because of this. And all of the sort of vampires that are today are descended from these 13 clans, so not all of the 13 original clans are there anymore because, man, vampire society is a bitch.
They don't like each other.
No, they don't like each other very much. So there's essentially 13 clans. There are bloodlines that add more because there's interesting variations out there. But essentially vampires are undead. They need blood to live because, you know, just vampire things.
They do have supernatural abilities. They have, like, supernatural strength. They can take a beating. They do live forever.
They do live forever. The longer they live, the less humanity they have, the more monstrous become, because the entirety of vampire existence is either a fight or an embracing of the inner beast, the sort of the curse that drives vampires. Garlic really doesn't do much, I don't think. I think there is a clan out there that is their weakness, but by and large, it's...
They could eat it if they ate, but they don't.
But they don't. Holy symbols don't do much, unless it's backed by true faith, which is an extremely rare thing. It's more of the true faith than the symbol itself.
Yeah, it's not even really the symbol, because it's not a cross. It could not necessarily be a cross. It could be money if the guy had true faith in it, that it would save him.
Capitalism. Yes, garlic is a flaw. Hamel. Life needs blood to live. Stake through the heart paralyzes the vampire, doesn't kill them.
Yes, only if it goes through the heart and it only paralyzes them. But there are two major weaknesses that they need to look out for. Sunlight.
Yep.
If you see a sunrise, you're dead.
Yep.
As a vampire. Pretty much.
Looking at you, Toreador.
And fire.
Fire.
Fire bad.
Fire very bad. Vampires are to fire as the Hound is to fire. Fuck that shit. They're out. Game of Thrones reference.
One of the few
readers.
things that'll make a vampire quiver in fear is like a lit torch.
Yep, it's like, nope, fuck this shit. So, vampires have been around for quite some time. The 13 clans have been around. There are new clans. There weren't always there. So we're kind of going to go through... I think we'll go through the clans now, since that seems to be the interesting... Clans are sort of... take the place of classes. For those of you who've only really kind of played D&D, there isn't like, oh, you pick a race and you pick a class. It's... you pick a clan, and that's kind of what, you know, that defines your power. Mm-hmm. That defines sort of your outlook. But I think before that we should talk about the Masquerade.
The thing which protects them.
Well, so this is the Camarilla. This is not from the sort of ancient times of vampires. This is a relatively, I think, newer construct, is the idea of the Masquerade and the idea of sex. Sects.
I think it originates in the Renaissance when the Camarilla was founded.
Yes, the Camarilla, they're all about the Masquerade. They're all about the... we should just not let the humans know we're here and stuff, because that could be
because the
bad.
Inquisitions were bad.
Yeah, nobody wants a repeat of the Inquisitions. Except Inquisitors. But, you know, they don't count. They're also very much about the traditions, which sort of uphold the Masquerade. They also do not believe that the antediluvians are still out there and kind of messing with vampire society.
They question whether they even exist.
Exactly. They're like, boogeymen. What are you next? You get a fucking tooth fairy?
They're like, man, the Earth is 4.6 billion years old. Don't even talk to me about antediluvians.
Yeah. So, the Sabbat are sort of the opposite, I would say. They are very much, they believe the end is nigh. They are, I would consider them sort of the nut jobs on the corner holding up the sign that says the end is nigh.
They're a doomsday cult.
They are a doomsday cult. I would consider them the doomsday cult, where the Camarilla is like, jihad? Antediluvians? Have you been conversing with the Malkavians again? Because that's some crazy ass shit, motherfucker. The Sabbat believe in freedom, but also, oddly enough, loyalty? Like, you're free to do whatever you want, but you must be loyal.
But you better be loyal to me. That's the important thing.
That is the important thing. They're sort of butting heads, and then there are the sort of the independents who are kind of like, well, you all have fun with that shit. I'm going to be over here trying to summon my chthonic god.
Or, have fun in catacombs.
Yeah. And then there are the anarchs, which, as their name doth say, the anarchy, woo, fuck the man.
They want to be like a meritocratic society in vampirism, which is like crazy talk from among the elders. But yeah, they are 100% all about the merit, and the person who does the best should be the person in charge.
And then there are there's a strange rumor of this group called the Nkanu, but, we don't talk about them very much. They're totally not, like, out there just, like, fuck your games. We're just going to be out here trying to search for enlightenment. Nah, man, I ain't about that life. So there are different sects, wanting different things. Vampire Society, by and large, is a game of politics. It is a game of deception. It is a game of power. Because vampires desire power. It is a very interesting thing. And there is something supposedly called the Jihad, in which the elders sort of try to influence pawns, both humankind, mortals, and younger vampires, in a game of power, in which they said even the elders are being influenced by older power still, those fabled antediluvians who may or may not be still around, depending. And it's all this sort of fighting, and the Nkanu are kind of above it all. They're kind of like, sorry guys, namaste, I'm out. And so,
just trying to open that third eye, man.
Yeah. So, it's like playing a game of cards in a pitch black room with pitch black cards. It's really interesting. And different clans belong to different sects or different organizations. So,
though there are exceptions.
There are exceptions. So we're gonna go through the clans, and then we'll discuss Caitiff and Antitribu. So I believe the first one is Assamites, who are independents. They are the silent masters of assassination, killing for hire, and they collect blood for rituals to bring them closer to their progenitor. They are straight up fucking like Assassin's Creed kind of, but vampires. Woo!
They're very Middle Eastern flavored.
They are.
They follow Hakim, who is their progenitor, and they believe that devouring of other vampires will bring them closer to Hakim. So they're not popular amongst other vampires.
Yes, because there is something called diablerie, which is frowned on in the Camarilla. If you commit diablerie, you're gonna fucking die, the final death. Because diablerie is when you consume another vampire's blood to absorb their power, which has happened before on a big scale. But you gotta be careful, because the higher the power of the vampire, the more likely bad things could possibly happen. I'm being very broad because unfortunately there is a lot to cover, and I might do more streams if people are interested. But yeah, diablerie is essentially nom, 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 tasty blood, bring me closer, because there's something called generations with vampires, and for most it's steps closer to Cain. Cain's first, then second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th. And then there are the thin bloods, who are 14th and 15th, who actually supposedly can't sire children.
14 can.
14 can, but it's said they can actually give birth, which is very strange. But that's the end of times, and that doesn't exist. We don't talk about Gehenna.
We don't talk about thin bloods here.
No. I know we're bouncing around, and I apologize. So much to cover. Then there is the Bruja, who are part of the Camarilla. They were once philosopher kings of an ancient civilization, but they're now rebels and rogues with a fear, sort of an inclination towards frenzy, this is where sort of diablerie came in. Bruja was the original clan founder, and he was, I believe, diablerized by Troil. And that started this whole sort of inclination towards those who are very much embracing frenzy, which is when vampires lose their shit and they embrace the beast. But there are apparently true Bruja who were embraced by, Bruja and his children. And they are completely different. They are very calm, cold, and collected, except for when they lose their shit, and that's scary. And they have different powers, which are disciplines, which are we'll talk about in a bit.
But basically, the archetype for the modern Knights Bruja is your punk, carrying, wearing a shade T-shirt, shouting slogans at you.
Yeah. Then there are the followers of Set, who are independents. They venerate a sort of chthonic god while seeking out the world's secret places and protecting ancient artifacts. They're also about vices, which can be like drugs, sex, that sort of thing. They are all about venerating Set.
They believe themselves descended from the Egyptian god.
Yep. They are very interesting. They have a rival clan who's a bloodline called the Children of Osiris, which is a very interesting one.
They're pretty rare, though.
They are extremely rare. Then there are the Gangrel, who are bestial and untamed, and often they sort of end up resembling the animals which they demonstrate their mastery over. So they're like, that's where you get the stereotypical turns into a bat or wolf. Yeah. And when they come out of frenzy, they can sometimes get
characteristics of the animal which they turn into with their disciplines.
Ears or a tail. I call them furries.
Maybe they'll meow occasionally.
Yeah, I call them the furries of the vampire world.
Furries.
They're furries. They're indeed the furries of the world. And then there are the Giovanni, who I call the corpse fuckers.
Yes, corpse fuckers. That's very accurate. It is very accurate.
They are an insular family. They're also independent, who practice the art of commanding the dead while commanding global finances as they have sorts of the Renaissance. They are not original. The original clan were the Cappadocians, who also were into necromancy, but they were more scholars in finding the secrets between life and death, and Augustus Giovanni diablerized Cappadocius after ascending through the clan and sort of destroyed them. They killed them, period. Except that might not actually be true, because there are supposedly Cappadocians still around, but not only that, there are survivors, and they may be back.
What Giovanni learned is that it's usually a bad idea to try to kill a clan that spends all its time studying death.
Exactly. So we'll go through the bloodlines in a little bit, but there are interesting ones, like the Harbingers of Skull, who are old and appeared and joined the Sabbat and are looking for vengeance. The Giovanni are extremely insular. They're sort of almost Targaryen-like, they sort of marry each other, they fuck corpses, they...
Think of mob family, but ruled by the Borgias, and you got the Giovanni.
Yeah. I love the Cappadocians, and the Harbingers of Skull are my favorite. They look they sound exactly the way they look exactly the way they sound. They are sort of, they kind of just appeared one night, and they're all old and powerful. And yeah, that's the interplay there.
I wouldn't mess with them.
No. Then there are the Lasombra, who are sort of, they embrace the darkness and the shadow, and some say they even worship it. They are very proud and noble, and they are the leaders of the Sabbat.
They'll also preach about aristocracy and bloodlines and, that kind of thing.
Yeah. They are very interesting. I would put them as a sort of counterpoint to the Ventru. Then there are the Malkavians, who are part of the Camarilla. They are fractured by madness, and each member sort of has their own sort of dementation that kind of...
Or derangement.
Derangement that kind of curses them. Though some say it's because they have the gift of seeing the truth of the world, and it's a heavy burden to bear, and it shatters them when they are embraced. If you've ever played Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines and have played a Malkavian, as Kyle pointed out to me earlier today, there is a Malkavian you run into, and your Malkavian character will call her Daughter of Janus, and it's Janus, and is really on point. The Malkavians can inflict their madness upon others, though, which is really fucking cool. So you can either play them as sort of...
prophets, I would say?
Prophets.
Like
mad prophets. Or you can be like my friend Kendo and pretend that you believe that you are Batman. Which is what he did. And he spent every single piece of money he got in that game. He built himself a bat cave, got himself some bat armor, and got him the Batmobile. And he was very upset if you called him by his name when he was wearing the Batman outfit.
What if you called him Bruce Wayne?
He got mad at that. Or if he was wearing a suit and tie and you called him Batman, he would flip the fuck out and go, No, I'm Bruce Wayne! So you could do one of two things with that.
Malkavians end up with as very interesting characters, although they can be difficult to play.
They can be difficult to play. A lot of the times I've seen people err on the side of, I am to Joker and I am to random. And
it doesn't tend to work out too well.
Then there are the Nosferatu, who are in the Camarilla. They have been hideously disfigured by the Embrace, so they keep to the sewers and the shadows, and they collect secrets. They are information brokers, because they tend to just skulk and hide, and no one really wants to pay them attention. If you've ever seen Nosferatu, they're kind of like that.
When they say hideous disfigured, they mean like skin falling off, sallow eyes, horrible disfigurements. Yeah.
And their weakness is your appearance is 0. You can't raise it above a 0.
And like even just appearing in public is a violation of the Masquerade.
Yeah, you're not allowed to be in public. And though the Nosferatu weren't always like that. The clan progenitor, the antediluvian, was supposed to be almost angelically beautiful. But he done fucked up and he got cursed.
He pissed off Cain.
He pissed off... When you piss off Daddy, Daddy, he doesn't like that. And though there are rumors that there are Nosferatu who don't have this curse of hideousness, they are known as the Nituku. And if you see one, you run like fuck, because they're old and they're powerful.
And they don't like their ugly cousins.
No, ask Baba Yaga how that worked out. She woke up and she decided she wanted to change Russia. And the Tuku found out and said, oh, no, bitch, we ain't doing this. Then there are the Ravnos, who are independent. They are nomads and tricksters who are masters of illusions, though they are a slave to the vices they're in. A lot of the time, they are on par with the Romani. And they actually use the term Romani in the book, so props for that.
Yeah, actually.
They do not use the slur. So they are masters of illusion at higher powers. It gets really, really interesting. But they do have vices that they absolutely have to dabble in. That is their weakness. But they are very super cool. They are very go wherever the wind takes them type.
Yeah. Like you said, the oh my gosh. You just said the name of the peoples.
The Romani?
They're very much a Romani clan. You can't go wrong if you bull them like that.
No. Then there are the Toreador, who enjoy every sensual pleasure in the world. They idolize beauty, and they love the adoration of their thralls, of their ghouls. Ghouls are essentially... humans have been fed enough vampire blood to bind them to the vampire as extremely loyal. Think Renfield from Dracula. So Toreador are all about beauty. Their weakness is that they
They love beauty.
They can't pull themselves away from beauty unless they make a will roll, which sometimes that includes a really pretty sunrise, and you end up with a crispy Toreador.
But think, artists, actors,
Exactly.
people who love theater. Those are the kind of people that would be perfect Toreador.
Perfect Toreador is all about the beauty and the pleasures in the world.
Aesthetics is like their thing.
They're Camarilla. Also Camarilla are the Tremere, who wield supernatural powers through their sorcerer past. Though they became vampires through treachery and artifice. They're not original. The original clan that was in their place was the Salubri, who their antediluvian was Salat. They were healers. Their vampire powers led to being able to heal.
They were obsessed with enlightenment.
They were very obsessed with enlightenment. And Tremere was a human mage who used sorceries to end up diablerizing Salat and
Trying to turn himself into an anti-Salute.
And thus the Tremere became a clan. They're called warlocks, but some also, especially of the older clans, will call them usurpers, because that is what they are. They are essentially vampire mages. So if you like magic, the Tremere are your kind of people.
They could set your blood on fire, kind of magic.
They have different passive power that you can take with thaumaturgy. They also are responsible for gargoyles, which are their dirty little secret. Gargoyles also were once called slaves. They were essentially vampires taken in by the Tremere and changed into exactly what their name suggests, gargoyles, these sort of rocky, winged slaves that were bound to their will, though they've recently become freed and they're part of the Camarilla themselves, and they will no longer be slaves. So that always sets up an interesting dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are the Shemisi, who are Sabbat.
Oh, the Samishi. Oh, my goodness.
They are the eldritch old world lords who don't really have much in common with the mortal world anymore, and they can manipulate flesh and bone at a whim. Their big thing is they've made something called the Cathedral of Flesh, which is made out of thousands of living mortal bodies.
Oh yeah, that's not dead bodies.
They're
the
alive.
Flesh is alive.
They are very much when you think of old world, like Baltic vampires.
Yeah, Romanian, like Dracula, Vlad Tepes. He was a Samishi.
They are creepy, and they are very much a, I don't like you, I'm going to make you in a chair and sit on you.
Yes. Not so good.
I pronounce it Shemisi, because that's how my old DM pronounced it. So, then there are the Ventru. Ventru. Shush you. Kyle knows my weakness. They're the sort of, they are called the Blue Bloods for a reason. They sort of, through their entitlement and greed, encourages them to seek ever more at the expense of others. They consider themselves the leaders of the Camarilla. It is their burden to lead.
They were the founders of Rome,
Yeah.
They have all this lineage. They talk about their noble origins. They are your CEOs, your nobles. They believe, but they are the Camarilla. They do believe in, embracing humanity over the beast, unlike the Sabbat.
Then there are the Caitiff, who don't have a clan. Either they were sired and their sire either left them or was killed shortly after, so they really don't have a clan. They've just kind of picked things up as they go. So they're kind of here and there. You'll find Caitiff all over the place.
Yeah. Whether it be a survived shovelhead, a vampire with a dead sire, or a thin blood so thin that they don't have a clan. Exactly.
And then there are bloodlines. There are the Bali, the Balai, Bali. Bali's from the Wednesday game.
The Ali?
They are essentially, I believe, an antediluvian made a pact with a demon, and you get these. They are heavy into the occult. They believe that the end is fucking nigh, and they will do everything they can to usher that in as quickly as they can, because it is inescapable. So yeah, they're nicknamed the Demons. They pretend sometimes to be in the Camarilla or the Sabbat, but they don't have a sect. They are just there to help usher in Gehenna, or the end of days, where Gehenna is the antediluvians will wake up and devour their children. They will devour vampire kind, and Cain wakes up, and essentially the entirety of Vampire the Masquerade I've always boiled down to as an elaborate, confusing, complex game of Don't Wake Daddy. Because you don't want Cain.
If when Cain wakes up, that's bad.
That's bad. It's like,
he's not going to be happy.
Yeah, like in the game, you don't want to wake Daddy. That's like the worst fucking thing. So another one is the Blood Brothers, which are, they were created by the Tremere and the Shemasi of the Sabbat. They are, they're called Frankensteins, or Frankensteins.
Frankenstein. They're like basically like people sewn together almost, like built to be like perfect weapons kind of thing.
They're thus. For anyone who's not Sabbat, kill, do not obey. For Sabbat, they obey and do not kill.
They're basically shock troops.
They're shock troops, and they're almost mindless, and it's really kind of scary. Then there are the Daughters of Cacophony, which some say they're a bloodline of Toreador or Malkavian, but because of their powers, it says it's actually probably Ventru. They're known as the Sirens. They're all about singing. They base their entire unlife on song, and they can sort of control people with their music, as their nickname would suggest. They are very much believing in performing and then being alone in their solitude with their song. It's really interesting, and most of the bloodlines have their own special discipline, which are the vampire powers, which we'll get into. The gargoyles are Tremere ones. They are the poor sons of bitches. Sometimes the sort of Tremere will start with a gangrel or Nosferatu or Shemasi, and then perform bloody rituals using the blood, heart, and skin vitae or the vital essence from other vampires to mutate them. And there were Tremere's dirty little secret until they were unleashed. And
they are very powerful, though.
They are extremely powerful. Do not want to mess with them, but they're just, I think, happy to not be slaves anymore. Then there are the Harbingers of Skull. Oh, I love these. They are essentially, they're Sabbat, which they're Sabbat that are okay with me. They kind of suddenly appeared after a long bout of torpor, but they don't act like recently awakened vampires. They claim to have been dead for like 5 centuries, and they resemble rotting corpses.
Like really rotting corpses. Like, you know, you got the lips pulled back so you can see their teeth kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that kind of corpse.
They're called the Lazarines. And
they're rumored to be Cappadocians.
They are rumored to be what's left over the Cappadocians who fled beyond the veil to the other world to wait for a time to pay back the Giovanni.
Oh, because ghosts exist. That probably is what happened.
Yeah, ghosts exist. Probably should have mentioned, in the world of darkness, ghosts exist, wraiths exist, changelings exist, there are mages, there are werewolves, and my favorite, and everyone knows my favorite, there are fae. I just heard my players scream. They are necromancy. And speaking of fae, there is a bloodline called the Kiasid, who are a bloodline of the Lysander clan, but they're supposedly very weird. They're hyper focused on their studies. They are very quiet. They don't like other members of their kind.
They don't even participate in the jihad. They don't Sabbat, even though they're the Sombra.
Their weakness is they don't like iron. Funnily enough, if they touch iron, they have to roll to make sure that they don't enter a frenzy. If they take damage from cold iron, it does aggravated damage to them.
Which we'll get into.
They are, in fact, vampire with fae mixed in. So you can tell how much I like them. Everyone's like, please take them away. Please take them away from Stickit. There are the
Nagaraja.
The Nagaraja, which are another Middle Eastern bloodline. Everybody fears them. Nobody really likes them. Everyone's fucking afraid of them. They are known as flesh eaters because their weakness is that while they need blood, they also need to eat flesh.
So don't get bit by one of them.
Yeah, no, they are very, very much. They mostly are independent, but they are extremely powerful, and they are considered to be almost like vampire witches. But yeah, they need meats. And then they're considered a bloodline now, but they were once a clan. They're actually still celebrity around.
Very few, but they're still kicking around in a couple of places.
They're called Cyclops or Soul Suckers. They have a third eye. But yeah, they're still kicking around after what the fuck Tremere did.
Although they've been kicked out of the Camarilla, the Sabbat don't want them, and they wouldn't want to be in the Sabbat anyways. And they're basically just struggling to survive at the moment.
Yep, there are those who still want to try to attain what Salat wanted originally, is to find Golconda, to find enlightenment. Then there are others who just wish to vengeance on the Tremere.
Just want to kill all the Tremere they see, yeah.
They're the Samedi, who are... the Harbingers of Skull are hideous, but they haven't invented a word to describe the Samedi. They are nothing more than rotting, walking corpses. And they take their name, and they are originally from the Caribbean. Like Baron Samedi.
I think is their progenitor. Their original progenitor.
Yeah, I believe they're an offshoot of the Nosferatu. And their discipline, their vampire power that's unique to them, is Thanatosis, which they manipulate dead flesh. Super fun, you guys.
They get wrong with the Giovanni.
Their nicknames are the Stiffs. Another bloodline is the True Bruja, who we talked about before. They are more along the lines of the calm, the collected. They're known as sages. They are very much the philosopher king types. They also have an ability called Temporis, which they manipulate time. Which is really fucking cool.
I made this comparison earlier today. I think I said a true Bruja is like, you know, a Marx type, the one who actually studies those kind of rebellions, and like I said, as opposed to the later Bruja, which are essentially the guy with the shade shirt shouting slogans at you and handing out flyers.
Then there are the Lamia, who they were a bloodline devoted to defending the Cappadocians. The founder of the line claimed to be a daughter of Lilith. And they're called the Gorgons. And they're pretty fucking cool. I believe their weakness is they carry something called the Seed of Lilith, which is a wasting disease that is spread by their bite. Yeah.
Oh, they can give the Black Plague to people, that's right.
Yep. And then there is the Leonin, who are essentially, their nicknames are the Druids. They are vampire druids, which, essentially they are they claim to be sired by the crone. And they became bonded with a spirit of force, and they sort of protect their own little domain.
Which is weird for vampire, because usually vampires avoid nature.
Yeah.
Because there's werewolves out there. Those are bad.
I don't know if there's any anymore, but when I run it, I allow people sometimes to do strange bloodlines, provided they can find a really cool story for it. There are other ones, but
those are the major ones.
And so, in terms of clans, there's also something called Antitribu, which essentially are like, say there's Lasamba Antitribu. The Sambra are of the Sabbat, and Antitribu would be one who works and is a member of the Camarilla.
Essentially, it's someone who an Intriguer is someone who goes against the normal proclivities of their clan. Instead of working with Sabah, they work with the Camarilla, or vice versa. Or, maybe they just work for themselves instead of working for one of the clans or sects. That kind of thing. They just tend to be divorced from what their clans are normally about.
Exactly. And each clan generally has disciplines which are unique to them. There's a whole bunch of them, including the specialty ones for the specialty bloodlines, but there's things like animalism, which is the gangrel. I believe it's sort of, they create connections with beasts and stuff like that.
Yeah, they can take characteristics of animals or take control of animals, and some really high levels of it can even turn themselves into animals.
Yep, it's really interesting. There's aspects, which is uncanny sensory abilities, which you can get to a point where you can see people's auras, which is interesting because if someone has... a vampire has diablerized another vampire, it shows up as black veins in their aura.
But you can also see, like how good or evil they are. You can see how much the beast has taken hold of them.
Yep.
You can see tons of stuff like that.
There's celerity, which is...
Oh, celerity.
Super speed! Gotta go fast!
Yeah, think the Flash, basically. When you use celerity in game terms, basically you get like 5-6 turns, 6 attacks or actions in your turn. So that's really good.
Then there's I can't pronounce that.
Chimistry.
Chimistry.
That's the Ravnos's.
That's the Ravnos. That's all about illusions.
Illusionary magics.
Which is interesting. With disciplines, you get levels of them. Levels correspond to your generation. The lower the generation you are, the closer to king you are, the more powerful you can get, up until the point where you can get, like... no one will ever hit 10th level, but most 10th level is generally leveled as plot device.
Yeah.
For a reason.
That's the antediluvian's kind of power.
Then there's Demontation, which is the Malkavian one, which is, let me inflict madness upon you.
Let me show you the world as I see it.
Yeah. Which doesn't generally go well for people. Then there is Dominate, which is exactly what it sounds like. Y'all know Dominate Person, because I know most of you here play D&D. It's essentially like that.
The highest levels of it, though, I mean, and it's not just like, oh, I want you to do what I tell you to. It can be like, I'm going to make you stop your heart, kind of dominate.
Yep, still the mortal flesh is, I have that much command over you that I can stop your heart. It's scary. Vampires are scary. Like, one of the highest levels of Dominate is where an antediluvian can speak through their bloodline, reaching all vampires descended from them. So shit like that's kind of scary. Fortitude is essentially you have unnatural constitution. Essentially, you can take quite a fucking beating and keep on ticking.
It mitigates damage. It's like supernatural armor almost.
Thank you, babe. Necromancy is the Giovanni one. Is essentially commanding the souls of the dead. It has different paths that require different rituals, that sort of thing. But it's, I'm gonna bind spirits to do it.
Giovanni love their zombies, and they use them to protect their havens, kill their enemies, and other things.
Then there's Obfuscate, which is the shadows, manipulating shadows, that sort of thing.
Basically, Obfuscate can like hide you, turn you invisible, that kind of thing. But it's the Nosferatu's specialty. It's one of the reasons why they're so good at their job of.
Well, yeah. I'm sorry. I was thinking about Tenebrations. Obfuscate is essentially
invisibility.
Sneaky. Tenebrations is the shadow play. stuff, which
that's
is
the Sombras.
that's the Los Sombras. Then there is Potence, which is unnatural strength. I'm gonna throw a temper tantrum and lift a car above my head and toss it.
Yeah, that's like the Bruja speciality, if I remember correctly. I think the Gangrel can do it too.
Then there is Presence, which is both Ventura and Toreador have this. This is awe.
Pretty.
Yeah, it's sort of awe and entrancing, and let me charm you, and let me, come hither. Then there's Protean, which is essentially sort of this heightened connection to the natural world. And they can manipulate their physical form. Eyes of the beast, claws, melding with the earth, which you gotta be really fucking careful of.
It's very similar to animalism. And it's also, I think it's the Gangrel's other power.
And then there's Quietus, which is the Asimite domain, which is sort of based on blood and poison and control of vital essences and pestilence. It sort of focuses on the destruction of a target through a variety of means. It's really fucking cool.
Don't get pissed off an Asimite.
Exactly. Serpentis is the followers of Set. It's, as it sounds, powers that emulate that of serpents and snakes. Then there's Thaumaturgy, which is magic.
It's blood magic, to be specific.
Obviously, they're vampires. They lost their mortal powers when they were embraced.
Yeah, that's funny, is that they lost that. In becoming a vampire, may have made himself slightly weaker.
We have spent almost a full hour talking about this. I haven't even talked about things. So.
Not even taught one thing about mechanics yet.
Vicissitude, which is the flesh crafting.
We're talking about character creation right now, basically.
Essentially, which I think we're going to stop, because I don't want to bore people. But in Vampire the Masquerade, these kind of found it, as well as with willpower as resisting against frenzying and stuff like that. You have a blood pool, which is how much blood you can use. Generation is a thing. There is a lot of the standard RPG mechanics in here, which you have abilities, which are things like strength, dexterity, stamina. There's
your social abilities,
charisma,
appearance, and
manipulation. And then there's intelligence, wits, and perception. Then there's talent, skills, and knowledges, which are
everything from your talents can be like your brawling skill or your internal empathy, or your skills are like your melee skill, your ability to perform something, your stealth. Your knowledge is whether how good you are with computers
or the occult,
the medicine, whether you know the law, or technology.
The whole big thing with character creation here is there are things called dots. Dot corresponds to dice. In this game, we roll d10s and literally nothing else.
Yeah, you'll need like 10 d10s, and that's it.
Yeah, you're gonna need like a metric shit ton of d10s.
Just 10. No, because the most you could ever roll is 10.
No, you need all the d10s. Like literally, you need to go to your store. You need to buy all of them. There's disciplines, there's backgrounds, which is stuff like resources, herd, generation, that sort of thing. And then there are merits and flaws, which are my favorite fucking thing, and it's not in D&D, and it makes me sad. They're not feats exactly. Flaws are things like you have a dark secret.
You're actually hurt by garlic.
Stuff like that. Merits are stuff that's like added benefits, and that stuff's cool as fuck. Also, there's something called humanity. It's how close to being human you are. And the more you embrace your inner beast, the less humanity you have. Though there are those that sometimes follow a path instead of following, trying to be as human as possible.
Essentially, your humanity prevents you from frenzy. The higher your humanity, the less likely you are to frenzy.
Which would, some will go, well, why should I even bother? Well, the more you embrace the beast, the more beast you'll become. If you essentially hit the bottom of your humanity, you are nothing more than a slave to your instincts, and you lose your character.
You essentially become like an animal almost.
So, I think we'll definitely have to go and talk about character creation in another thing.
Right.
Though, if anybody has questions, please let me know. essentially, mechanics-wise, is you have dice. So say you want to pick a lock. You could argue dexterity plus larceny.
Dexterity plus larceny, yeah.
So say you have 3 dots in dexterity and 3 dots in larceny. You roll 60-10 total. Okay. And say the lock is fairly complex, but not too complex. So the difficulty is 5. You roll your 60-10, and anything that's a 5 or greater is considered a success, though 10 is considered an automatic success.
Yes.
If you roll less than that, is considered a failure.
Right. And if you have more successes than failures, you succeed. How well you succeed depends on how many more successes than failures you have. Or successes more than botches, actually. Because I think it's only considered a fail if you roll a 1.
Yes. It does.
You don't succeed if you don't roll over a 5. If you roll a 1, it's a failure.
That is a failure. And if your failures outnumber your successes, it is considered a botch.
Picking a lock, it might mean you stick the lock, you can't ever pick it. It might just mean you break your lock pick. It depends on the storyteller, it depends on the situation.
Yeah. So essentially that's the mechanics, which is really interesting. There are fighting mechanics, which is essentially... I'm going to let you do this because you're better at that than I am.
So combat is based entirely on the same kind of success and failure system. Generally, you're trying to try to beat a 6, depending on, if they have cover or whatever. You have guns. This takes place in the modern era, so there are guns. There are, melee weapons, and there are other, implements like that. But essentially, for every success you have, it's another roll of your damage dice. And that determines how much damage you actually do. But for actual combat itself, you don't have a hit point pool in Vampire the Masquerade. You have health levels: bruised, hurt, injured, wounded, maimed, crippled, and incapacitated. And if you're a vampire, there's 2 other levels below that: torpor and then final death. And essentially in this game, the more damaged you are, the fewer dice you have to roll. So if you are crippled, you get -5 to the number of dice you can roll. So if you normally roll 6, you would only roll 1 if you're close to death. The result of 3 kind of damages. There's called bashing damage, lethal damage, and aggravated damage. Now, bashing damage is normal. I got punched or hit with a blunt object, or if you're a vampire, I got shot, because guns aren't terribly lethal to a vampire. Bashing damage to a vampire, you take half of the actual damage. And it goes, essentially you just get damaged slower. Lethal damage is something from a sword or a melee weapon, and aggravated damage would be sunlight, fire, claws of a werewolf, some kind of supernatural damage that it will specifically say is aggravated.
Motherfucking werewolves.
Yeah, werewolves are bad, by the way. Do not fight a werewolf.
There's lots of shit you shouldn't fight. Combat inherently, I feel, in my opinion, is deadlier in Vampire the Masquerade than it is in D&D.
If you get if you get shot 3 times as a human, you're probably so dead you're dead. Unless you're ghoul.
So dead you're dead.
So dead you're dead.
So dead you're dead. Huh?
That's a collonism. But yeah, getting shot once could be death in if you're a human. If you're a vampire, probably not. Bashing damage you can normally take. You can also soak damage with armor. You can also soak damage with your stamina score, depending on what kind of damage it is and how much you take.
And soak is...
But that's the gist of it, basically.
And soak is...
soak is basically, instead of taking the damage, you just don't take it. It just damage against... It just basically it hit my armor, or...
I'm a vampire,
fuck you. The wound just immediately closed.
So, I think...
Or it winged you, maybe.
Yeah, I think generally that is a very overarching thing. There is something called a blood pool, which you need to feed every day, and you take blood.
Yeah, you lose blood points every day, I think. I think 1 point a day, depending on your weaknesses of your clan and the flaws you take.
Blood. So you need to go feed.
You need to be careful, not if you want to... there's a balance between killing innocent people and losing humanity, and getting enough blood to to actually feed yourself, because every point of blood you take does damage to a human.
Yep, and you can spend blood to heal yourself. Some vampire powers require blood.
Yeah, it usually costs blood to cast something for one of your disciplines.
Blood.
You can also use a blood point to enhance your abilities. You can, say, use a blood point to increase your dots in strength or dexterity.
Blood.
Yeah, blood.
Blood. Oh, so I think that's a really working thing. I think when I run session zeros, we'll go into more. So, woo! Spring break. So, DC by Night, which I think is, what most everyone's here for me to talk about, because I will be running multi-shots of Vampire the Masquerade. I think the first one I'm going to run is going to be on Thursday evenings, preferably before Critical Role, so I can actually get, people interested in here. So what is DC by Night? Well, I will be running the multi-shots centered around Washington, D.C. in the United States of America. Why? Because that's the city I am most familiar with. It's also the city I have lots of stuff for. There was a supplement back in the day called DC by Night, which is what we're using for Dungeon Crawl by Night, which is going to be, as I said. I am not running that. As always, I homebrew, I tinker, I add new NPCs, I change existing NPCs to suit my needs. So if you've ever read that or have read the wiki, not exactly is going to be like that. The prince is... his name is Marcus Aurelius Sejanus, but is not the Marcus Vital in the DC by Night book. DC is a place of power. I am running Camarilla only, which means if you want to be a Lasombra or a Shamisi, you're gonna have to be into Tribu. Cause I don't fuck with the Sabbat.
No, Sabbat... The Sabbat are way too doomsday culty, and I embrace the beast so much that they tend to be pure, like, evil campaigns, and those don't tend to be very politicky.
Speaking of politics, that is essentially how I run my Vampire the Masquerade games. If you like heavy role-playing, if you like politicking, if you like plays of power, this is exactly how I run things. It is all about the games of patronage and moving pawns and that delicate balance on the edge of a knife of being loyal and out to get power for yourself to do your own prestige. And DC is a very, very dangerous place full of old vampires who, a lot of which came from the old world to set up shop here when it was just the colonies. The prince is fairly old. I think he is 7th generation? No, maybe older than that.
He's either 7th or 6th. He's not a Methuselah. He's not a 5th or a 4th.
No, he's not a Methuselah. There is a Tremere Pontifex here. Pontifexes are sort of heads, leaders within the clan of Tremere. They have really interesting names.
Because the Tremere are very insular and actually... they actually operate as a family almost, kind of like the Giovanni. They don't
fuck corpses. They just use them in horrific blood rituals.
Yeah, they have things called chantries, which they essentially use as like I don't know if houses is the right word, but places
You're
of
a vampire wizard, Harry.
Basically, actually.
But essentially, DC is going to be a very interesting place. It is a Camarilla stronghold.
But the Sabbat are trying to move in.
The Sabbat are trying to move in. They are trying to take Baltimore, which is essentially right now a buffer
between their stronghold and New York City.
The Sabbat stronghold is in New York City. So there's always interesting things go around. Here there are ley lines, there are power to be had. It is going to be very, very interesting. I am going to run several different kind of multi-shots. Maybe if I can wing it a campaign, but I have had Talking to Jesus talks with several of my players who said, please don't burn yourself out. So for right now I'm doing multi-shots. It's going to be on Thursday evenings before Critical Role. If you're interested, please let me know. You will be playing with Kyle.
Yay, me.
Because he's the one who started all this. I will run session zeros so that you guys can ask questions, we can build your characters, and run as a group, because there are things called coteries, which are when vampires band together for causes like a mission or through mutual helping of one another.
Or just the fact that, hey man, strength in numbers. I'm trying to not get killed by Sabat and staked and left out for the sunrise, so helpers help.
The world of darkness is a very dangerous, dark place. There are changelings, there are mages, there are werewolves, there are ghosts, and the ghosts are extremely powerful here. There are hunters out there.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about the church, man.
Oh man, fuck that.
Oh yeah, the Inquisition lives, and if you find someone with true faith, that's bad.
They're gonna kill your ass. They're gonna stake your pasty, ashen ass and have you watch the sunrise.
They're more likely to use a flamethrower nowadays, but
well, yeah, but some still believe in the art. Okay, man. So it is very dangerous to be a vampire.
But very rewarding, I think.
Here's the thing. Whereas, generally how I run my campaigns is they're different time periods with very little interacting with one another other than, haha, look, I made a reference to Husbando Bot. Everything here, there are consequences. Every choice you make, every bit of power you try to accumulate from yourself, it affects other things in the city. The city lives, it breathes. Unlike you don't. You're undead. And you're trying to navigate this undead world as best you can, trying not to get in the way of others while trying to climb the rank of power. Because whispers are the final night comes. And when that descends and the antediluvians rise and Cain comes to judge one and all, you want to make sure that you can maybe, just maybe, survive this. If that's actually truly a thing, because
we might be 4.6 billion years old, and that's all bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, the fucking boogeyman. Think of like a tooth fairy, lol, fucking nerd. I'm gonna push you in a garbage can and roll you down the street, you fucking nerd.
What are you, Nelson? Exactly.
So this is going to be very, very interesting. I'm going to try to run on other days as well, because I know not everybody can do Thursday nights, but yeah, essentially you're going to be dropped into DC. I am generally allowed almost every clan, provided you can give good reasoning if you are into tribu, or if you are a bloodline. I just like saying it like that, bloodline. But yeah, it is a great way to say, don't wake daddy. It's the game we're going to be playing. So if you want to play the Lianen, who are the vampire druids, give me a great backstory, you can do it. If you want to be a Cappadocian, you can go ahead. If you want to even be Salubri and you find out a way that you have survived this long, go ahead. But
There's probably going to be torpor involved.
Lots of torpor involved. But yeah, what's going to be happening is I'm going to be running coteries through, and the first group I run, if they fuck things up, that's going to make it increasingly difficult for the next one. But I'm not going to tell you guys what the other one does. No, you get to find that on your own. So, yeah, if you're interested, let me know. I'm probably going to run EST timed. So, unfortunately, I'm sorry, I'm a West Coast people. I will be running another one that's more West Coast friendly. I will try to run that are European friendly. Jesus.
European.
Thanks. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just thank you for that. Does anybody have any questions? Hi, Jess. Yes, there are druids in here, vampire druids. But yeah, you definitely, Camarilla. No, you can't be Secret Sabat. There's no Secret Sabat. No, you can't be Kane.
Everyone's gonna whip their mask off and say, I'm Sabat. No, I was Sabat. We're all Sabat. Wait, this is Sabat coterie.
Dun dun dun! Mind freak! Seriously. It's crazy, crazy shit.
Let's all go kill an antediluvian, because that'll end well. You just see like 4 vampires just like slowly pushing a coffin outside. Like, alright, the sun's gonna rise and we're all set.
Alright. No, it's just you steal Giovanni's coffin and you just roll him outside and open it and everyone just runs over like giggling. Like fucking Animal House prank.
Yeah, a little more ashes at the end though.
There are vampire wizards.
Mr. Tremere.
Oh man, the usurpers. Be prepared to
Now, the sins of the father.
You want to talk about sins of the father? Oh, I should probably mention that for those of just joining, I am running Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition, which this is not the cover for that book. This is the old cover for one of the older editions, which I ran back in the day. Cover. It is a really cool cover. It is actually my favorite cover because of the rose, and I am all about that goth life. But it is definitely a gothic punk setting. It will be sent in 2017. I am revising the timeline of Vampire the Masquerade because...
Sweet. I'm going to get on Facebook and Twitter and yell about how I'm a vampire.
Listen, alright? For those who have the weakness where they can't see themselves in reflection, camera phones are the best fucking thing ever because they don't fucking require reflections.
See, I'm not a vampire. Look,
see?
Camera phone.
Camera phone, motherfuckers. Follow me on Instagram. So yeah, social media vampires, which is definitely going to be a thing. But yeah, because apparently I believe in the official timeline we've already hit Gehenna. So we're retconning some things because as much as I would love to go back in time and run in the late 90s and early 2000s, I think it's just easier to run in modern day.
I think it's more interesting. I like the idea of playing in with the internet. Because that's going to be something like your vampire grandpa elder isn't going to... The internet? What the hell's the internet? And he's not going to get that shit. That's an advantage, sir.
You get embraced to be a vampire because you're fucking an IT.
Your Primogen is like, hey, I need a newfangled computer. I need you to get on the internet.
You get embraced by a Ventrue because you work at the Apple bar.
I fixed my iPhone.
Oh my god. Oh shit, Jason, thank you for the Tinder is great for vampires. By the way, vampires can have sex.
They don't care for it as much as they care for the bite.
The bite, but it's useful.
Or the kiss, actually.
They can use blood. Blood to either get it up or...
They can spend a blood point to get it up.
Or other such things. Lube it up. Oh, man. Okay, I feel dirty now. I love you guys.
That's important info, indeed.
It is important info. Sex is usually used as manipulation of humans for food purposes.
How else are you supposed to, get someone to get alone with you and allow you to bite their neck?
David, there's no DM inspiration points in Vampire the Masquerade, but I want to give you one for that one.
I mean, I guess you could live off of homeless people, but, that's not as tasty. Or fun.
You can also live on animals, but it's not as nourishing.
Or as blood banks.
Speaking of which, so another thing I'm doing is the merits and the flaws are optional. I am doing it because they're fucking cool. Because it allows you to actually do things like eat food, which I don't know if Dustin's in here yet, but that's a thing.
Yeah, normally food doesn't turn to ash in your mouth, but you throw it up as soon as you eat it.
So
one of the merits, though, I believe allows you to hold it down for long enough that you can go throw it up in polite society in a bathroom.
You could pull off a Laura Bailey and eat her at. So I typically am going to run this very hands off the rules. I am a storyteller in a pure sense of the word. I don't like rules generally. They get in the way of things. I will do them if I have to. But by and large, these are going to be mostly role-playing.
Yeah.
Combat is a thing that can happen, depending on your choices. But if you love role-playing, this is going to be the focus of these games. You're going to be slipping into your character. You're going to be talking and manipulating and experiencing the world of darkness.
One thing I will say in regards to combat, though, is that I will repeat, combat is very deadly in the world of darkness. Be very careful in it. It's very easy to die.
Dustin, I see you saying that you suck at role playing.
Yeah, my ass.
I got backup, sir. But yeah, this is going to be RP centric. Going to be vampires.
Hello, neonate.
Does anybody have any questions on how vampire is, what I'm going to run, that sort of thing? Phrase. Red stapler time. I am tripping over my tongue today. Thank you for the pat on the head. Thank you.
Head pats.
Yeah, I tried running a campaign back in the early 2000s. It didn't end well because my entire group wanted more combat than role-playing.
That's not what Vampire is built for.
And they found they didn't like the combat nearly as much as what we were playing at the time, which I believe we were playing Cortex? We were going to start to play Cortex, which is the system that Serenity the Firefly RPG uses. And hopefully this will be interesting. This is going to be a game of intrigue. This is going to be a game of mystery and trying to survive the world of predators.
Why am I imagining a Nosferatu right now, furiously typing on a computer, trying to hack a traffic light right now?
Maybe because that's what they're doing. It's going to be very, very interesting. I should have more on the settings soon. So yeah, I mean, unless anybody has any questions, I think we're done. Unless there's last minute things you want to tell people about Vampire the Masquerade and why you like it.
I love it because I love the setting. The World of Darkness is wonderful. I love that gothic punk. I love the whole unholy knights. I love the supernatural. I just love the whole aesthetic. It's so pleasing. When you play a game, you're going to get into that late 90s, early 2000s super gothic punk era, and it's wonderful. It really is.
I hope you all like The Cure.
Yes, that's a perfect soundtrack.
If you want the 20th anniversary edition, I know that Drive-Thru RPG offers the PDF file. If you want it through less than savory means, I can't endorse it on the stream.
Yo ho fiddly tea.
Being a pirate is alright with me. Do what you want because a pirate's free. You are a pirate.
But seriously, we don't condone that.
Yeah, we don't condone. Hey, listen, I'm not saying I had LimeWire on my computer back in the day.
Oh man.
Hope you like your viruses.
Hey man, if you were dumb and downloaded EXE when you were looking for MP3s.
Listen, okay, not all of us were fucking smart back in the day, alright? I fucking ruined my goddamn computer when I was told just delete something that looks weird in the registry.
System 32 looks weird.
It wasn't System 32, god damn it. But yes, prepare for magic and intrigue and politics and
Spoopy. Don't forget Spoopy.
I think I might put a form out there that asks preferred days and preferred times. But yeah, the first one up I know I'm going to be running soon is going to be Thursday nights. Probably before Critical Role because I know everyone needs their Critical Role fix. But if you're interested, hit me up. You get to play with Kyle. Woo! like.
I don't know if that's a endorsement or not.
If you've ever seen The Fallen Returns, you know that Kyle really gets into stuff. Man, I am just
It's
fucking
also
phrasing
my opportunity to not play a goody two shoes for once.
I'm interested in that. I think timing wise, probably around 7:30 Eastern, so that people have time to get off from work, get home,
Who am I kidding? I'm still gonna play goody two shoes.
Yeah, I know you are. Get dinner, get ready, because I don't like people running in and feeling pressured after work. I try to avoid that as much as I can. I'm going to be running another one after the new year, with a different group. Maybe on a different day and a different time, because I have a lovely couple of people who I would like to run after the new year. Wink, wink, winky, winky, nudge, 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 nudge. So yeah, if you are interested, either tweet at me or send me a DM. I will tweet about it again some more. And yeah, we will build characters and we will see you all in the world of darkness. I think that's about it. So yeah, I am Persnickety at Persnickety. I am Persnickety, also known as Snicket, at Persnickety on Twitter. This is Kyle, who's at Majora1988 on Twitter.
I don't ever post on it.
He never posts on it, so you can try to follow him, and you're never gonna get anything out of him. The best way to get to him is to get through me. So with that, we will end the stream, as this is going over half an hour of what I would like. But yeah,
there's lots to talk about.
There is lots to talk about. Still lots more to talk about.
Yeah, we're just the tip of the iceberg, to be honest.
There's so much. Herm says I need to make you post on Twitter.
Make me.
Okay. Well, with that said, thank you guys for watching. I hope this was informative and fun. I know it was kind of all over the place. If you have any more questions, feel free to let me know. I will be your storyteller in the coming future. And just remember, this week I believe we have Curse of Stradina with DM Tempest Libris Christina, who's going to be running Curse of Strahd with a bunch of lovely people you're going to want to watch.
It'll be good.
It'll definitely be good. And then the week after that, we have for Science Crew on Saturday with some lovely people who are in here. I love you guys. Also, Monday, we have Galateo with DM Polyamorous Q. So that's also something you're going to want to watch. So that's enough out of me. I will see you guys later. Bye-bye!